Peter, first of all, thanks for being here. I know you're crazy busy here in Vegas at ConExpo. Appreciate you spending some time with us here. Hopefully the comfortable sofa helped. I do want to start with haha. I tricked you into wearing casual wear, which you never do, and I wore a sport coat, and I have it on video. I'm so happy.
I am not. Thanks, Russ, for the invitation.
Yeah.
I know why I'm here now.
Yeah. Little side hustle on that. Well, no, I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself, but if I can please start with how much California has kind of shined a light on how partnership can work across the country. Certainly, AGC of California is, by all numbers, a highly successful organization, but not just by the numbers. I'm always so pleased when I come out there that the member engagement is so fantastic. And that you've done such a great job of understanding the ecosystem, how the ecosystem works together, what we all do to support construction together. And you've kind of taken that on a journey, and you're a fantastic facilitator. You don't sell anybody, but you're kind of one of those people that knows everybody and kind of gets an idea of who needs to know who to solve what problem. And I believe that it's a model that really, if you would be willing to consult as a side hustle to help other organizations across the country, I would consider a great personal favor. And then also, Elizabeth, I'm taking all your thunder in your introduction, but Elizabeth, you really understand how California works and all the organizations, how they serve construction. So you're so much more than a Tenna person. You're like California construction walking around, and it's the model for I think how business gets done. So I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about that now that I've stolen your introduction, but also like as the sort of tip of the sword that California is, you're kind of early adopters on tech and sort of all things. So I would love your thoughts coming out of ConExpo on sort of where's the world going of construction. What are some of the ways? What are some of the problems we're all looking to solve together? What are you excited about over the next couple of years? So all that. So that was a lot. So if you wouldn't mind, now that I've already introduced you, Peter, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Russ, and thank you for the very kind words. Those are very, very generous, and we're very proud of the work that we do at AGC of California. So I'm Peter Tateishi. I'm the CEO at AGC of California. We're the largest statewide construction association, commercial construction association, and really, I think the word that you use that we embrace is an ecosystem. Construction is an ecosystem, right? There is so much that goes into this industry. It's not just the general contractor or the specialty contractor or the service supplier dynamic. We need each other to be able to do the impressive work that is necessary for everyday people, right? When we think about what our industry does, who it's impacting, right? Like, it's such an important piece and fabric, or part of the fabric that makes our quality of life so great. So we know that the ecosystem is necessary. We know that it takes so many different facets to do the important work. And I think that's what makes AGC of California a little bit different than a lot of other groups, is that we're not just there for this one subset. We're not looking to, I'll say, divide the industry. We're looking at how do we unite that industry to level up and support how we can all do what we want to do at the end of the day, which is create great communities. So I think that's the, I'll say, differentiating factor with the AGC of California, is that we don't see you as just a transaction. We don't see you as just you fit into this one small mold. And I don't think we treat people. We really look at that partnership to support the ecosystem.
Perfect. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Sure. My name is Elizabeth Torrez. I'm the regional director for Tenna on the West Coast. I started with Tenna about 5.5 years ago, and really our focus was on California, but through partnerships, we have seen a lot of success in California, which has ultimately resulted in business, which has been great for us. But I think that, our involvement within associations goes beyond just the partnership of trying to do business with one another, but to be partners in the industry for our clients as well. I think it's really important for us to understand what are their challenges, what are they going through, and to be in that room and have that conversation with them that allows us to understand how we can better help as a service supplier, vendor, associate, whatever you want to call us, to support their business operations, which is ultimately what Tenna can do.
Would the two of you mind speaking just quickly about maybe what makes California special? And when I say special, I mean both good and difficult, right? Like, you volunteer a lot with AGC. What do you get out of that, particularly with the flavor of California and how it's kind of special out there? But also, like, there's a lot of requirements coming out of California. You guys, it's tougher in some ways to do business in California, if you will, and and that bar to entry, I think, maybe even rises the tide a little bit as well, which is an interesting play. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You guys are there every day. I get to travel the country. But when I come out there's something special there. Would you talk about what you guys think makes it special?
So there are a lot of facets that make California a unique place to do business. It's easy to pick on why it's hard to do business in California.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons for that. But we agree with kind of your sentiment that because you have to play differently, because you have to comply with so many more regulations that don't exist anywhere else, because you're pushing your company to continue to, I'll say, meet the standards that California is putting forward, it is surprising for a lot of our members when they find it so much easier when they go into other places. But when I say easier, it's almost like if you know how to win in California, you can win anywhere. And conversely, we don't see a lot of people from other states coming and saying, let's just start in California now, because they have to level up differently. For the whole org is going to have to change to meet California's needs. You can't just say, well, for one little thing, maybe a project here and there, you can do it. But if you're really going to open up, your company is going to have to shift. You're going to have to start saying, we're going to actually meet with or compel ourselves to rise to the compliance levels of California. So in that sense, California does challenge companies to have to be a different kind of company. I'm not saying that's always a good thing. Some of our regulations and legislation and laws, they're really burdensome. They're onerous. They're not necessary in some regards. But as you're learning as a company to have to meet those standards, any state that's lesser, which is every state, again, it is a little bit easier to then kind of take that model and move it somewhere else and be able to excel and succeed. I do think, though, what is also on the, there are some challenges. The opportunities in California, though, are still extremely rich. We are still the fourth largest economy in the world. Right. So when you think about just California having that much opportunity and that much, I'll say, economic impact, you're seeing opportunities that don't exist in other parts of the country. So you're able to actually challenge yourself to do even more. And you're met with different types of, even from a geography standpoint. Right, we are a state that has deserts and mountains and floods and fires and every kind of crisis that you can imagine, and it's going to all happen in one state. So a response is going to be different to states that may not have to deal with all of the geography that we have to deal with when you look at it. So so in all of these facets, the opportunities in California really do kind of support our endeavors to level up as companies. I will say this last piece, and I'm sorry, it's a long answer.
It's great. Keep going.
But the piece that I think is also an opportunity is because of our economy, because of the diversification of our economy in California, we do get exposed to, I'll say, industry standards that are different and advanced standards, and not just for construction, but from other industries. So when you look at Silicon Valley and technology that's coming out of California, we're seeing that implementation happening here. So though it may not be in construction quite as much yet, but you see the autonomous taxis in San Francisco or Los Angeles, some are here now in Las Vegas, but those start in California. So you start to see technology become real in a different way. And I think that inspires companies, including the construction industry, to start going, there are ways to be more efficient, more effective, to just be do work easier. And so in those moments, I think the advantage of California having so many different industries that are visible and impacting our culture within California, it impacts our industry as well and allows us to kind of step forward differently than, I'll say, other states where they're not exposed to what those technologies, those industries are bringing to the table.
Great.
You still want me to answer the same question?
Your take. Do you have anything to add, or you're foot stomp, all good?
No, I mean, that was what he said was all great. I think, the only other added component is that the people in the room are all there for one reason, right? And that is they want to be able to make construction better and improve the processes or fight for what's right for contractors within the construction industry. And then as a bonus, we just happen to be together a lot throughout the year, and we become personal friends. And so I think that's part of the flavor within California is that, whether we're in the room talking to legislators about what's important in California and why, or we're at an event that is raising money for the PAC, whatever that may be, the time that we end up spending together, we end up just, it allows us to go beyond just work. And of course that, outside of your office, now everybody's not as, overwhelmed with working on bids and all the time consuming things. And it gives us an opportunity to relax and get to know each other on a personal level.
Yeah, I would foot stomp that. Again, traveling around the country, when I come to California, it feels like the ecosystem you've built, where the connective tissue for like construction with a capital C. I love that that everybody's sort of plugged in together, whether it's service, consultants, tech, all kind of coming together to be on this journey of how do we solve these big problems together. And you guys, you have developed something special out there where everybody kind of comes into the room with this, I'd almost say, a less confrontational nature. Not like, listen, I don't mean to say your job is easy. You still have to sell Tenna and get people to agree to a contract, right? And that's, construction has to win their contract, right? We all have our day jobs, but you guys are a little bit ahead of the game in terms of we're all working together at scale here, and we're going to get more done together. It's one of those things I was eager to have you on the sofa, and I'm kind of hoping that like tech moves across the country, kind of hoping that culture moves across the country, if you will. And not to put words in your mouth, but you guys are very good at embracing change. That change isn't this destination; it's this journey we're all on together. So what's my question? As tech, you're plugged into all this better than really certainly most of the industry. In fact, pretty much the whole team at Tenna as well. You've really taken a role serving construction in California in a way that's well beyond your role at Tenna. So from that role, what do you think we need to do? Is it not maybe Tenna, maybe all tech? How does tech serve that mission? And then maybe what are you really excited about, like looking at the next year, 2 years forward looking? How do we plug in there more? It can be about safety, it could be tech, like sky's the limit. Where can we help more? What are you excited about?
I can talk all day about how great I think Tenna is and what it can offer people. But I think at the end of the day, what's the most powerful and most valuable is what we've seen our customers benefit from it. And so sharing those stories of how we've seen people improve their utilization or reduce money in rentals or improve their driver's safety, those are all things that are important to the industry and ultimately impact the bottom line of the contractor. So I think that if we can continue to share that message and get people to understand, we're not in the room just trying to sell. Sure, we would love for you to do a deal with us. But at the end of the day, technology is being utilized as a tool to try to help most companies do what they're doing manually today. And I often run into contractors who are like, no, we do this on a spreadsheet or we do this on a whiteboard. And they've never quantified not only the amount of time it's taking them, but how bad their data might be. I think all of our customers do project costing, but a lot of them came in doing, manual entries on how often their equipment is working on the field and never took into consideration that if their, field is just making a guess at that your percentage of profit isn't actually accurate anymore. So I think it's sharing the customer stories that have been the most valuable for me with other folks in California to say, hey, so-and-so has seen this value and this ROI. And it really makes them pause and think about how could they be utilizing technology to improve the bottom line at their companies as well.
Peter, from your role, anything from the past is fine, but coming out of ConExpo, what are some of the things you're either from AGC or how you work with the ecosystem or tech? Sky's the limit here, Peter. What are you really excited about over the next couple of years on how you're going to stitch all this together?
Well, I think as we, as an industry, continue to evolve and advance and I'll say embrace technology, especially, what I think is the most exciting is conferences like ConExpo really do bring the industry together, but more importantly, they showcase the industry, right? They showcase what is possible. And so what is important when we pause, I'll say as an industry, to actually look at what's possible, it can inspire that next generation. Like our biggest challenge still continues to be recruiting that next generation to come into the workforce. And what we know about that workforce is that they want to use technology. They want to use tools that allow them to be more effective and efficient in the work that they do. And as an industry, we kind of sometimes like are a little slow to adoption. I think what we're recognizing now is that this next generation wants it, they need it, and it's like imperative that we as an industry start embracing it differently. So when we can plant the flag and have conferences where we can showcase that future, it's really saying to that next generation, we see you, and we're understanding that we have to change. And so I think this is a really cool opportunity, not just at this expo, but like for us over the next 4 years, we as an industry are going to be embracing even more technology. We're going to be embracing more efficiencies, looking at machines and equipment differently, and really sitting there saying, okay, as an industry, as construction, how we build is going to be different. And it's going to be important that we really start to think about all of those hows and then the tools that are going to allow us to do that differently. So that's what I'm excited about when we come to this kind of show and see where that future is, because to me, it's inspiring that next generation differently. And that's going to be a critical need, because by 2031, we're anticipating losing 41% of our workforce entirely. And so if we're not able to replace at that rate, which we're not, like we're going to have a huge cliff of experience that's just going to walk away from this industry. And we need to start figuring out how to backfill that. And we have to make sure that that backfill, is excited about what is possible. And these shows are really that. It's what is possible.
Do you mind going a little deeper on this? You did something very, very interesting where you guys really took a pause and went out to the industry and understand where's construction going from a very data-driven perspective, and what are the expectations of maybe the next generation that we're trying to attract to come into construction. And you really collected some really great data around that. Are there any like trends that you could share from that, lessons learned?
The one that I always go to is 75% of this kind of Gen Z, Gen Alpha will switch industries, switch jobs to get the right kind of tools, the right kind of technology that's going to help them be able to do it. So that's the mindset coming in. So if we're going to attract that next generation, we have to recognize that they're looking for an industry, whether it's construction or any industry out there. It's, are you giving us the tools, the technology that's going to allow us to work smarter, not harder? And they're willing to change. And so that's on us as an industry now to really figure out how we're going to like make sure that they are working smarter, not harder, because they're only going to give us 8 hours. They're only going to give us that 8 hours in a day. And if we are not maximizing that time, they're going to go somewhere else that's going to allow them to do the most good with their 8 hours. So those are some of the things that we've, I'll say, really dived into. We're also looking at this generation a little bit differently. They are mission driven. They want to know the impact that they have and that the work they're doing aligns with their values. And the good thing is construction can align there. And that means we have to think differently too. Because if we're idling machines and that's causing a problem for the environment, that matters to them. Because we see that the environment is one of their top issues. And how, again, when we talk about how we build, we have to think about sustainability. We have to think about the tools and the equipment that we're using. And so one of the things that I know Tenna does, which is fantastic, and this is going back to understanding your data, becoming more efficient, is looking at like those idle times. If you're just sitting there with an idle truck that's just consuming fuel and having exhaust, we're not helping. We need to know those things. And one, there's a great cost savings to know that. And there's also an environmental impact to that. And we as an industry have to recognize there's good in both, because this next generation is more important less about the financial side of it and more on are we helping the environment and how we're building and how, the materials that we're using and all of those things. So the alignment to mission is critically important with this next generation, and knowing that their values can be sustained in the work that they're doing.
It's fascinating. I like this whole let's take a pause and look at a concept that how do we get more productive every day? How do we get safer every day? A conversation every day. But sometimes we don't stop and think, how is this journey of change we're on? How are we going to replace all the people living in the industry, and how are we going to attract this next generation to come in? And it's interesting because we actually have all the right tools. Like construction is probably innovating more quickly right now than it ever has in its future. It is very mission driven. There's a lot of pride in a driving past and say, I helped build that people look for. And now, maybe not so 10 years ago, but now everybody has one of these in their pocket, right? And so the tech is, I'm not saying perfect, but the path it's on where they're enabled with tech is probably the fastest pace I've seen, certainly in the 10 years I've been in this industry. And I guess my question is this, like, we're in the industry and we're like, it's awesome. Like, I love my job, right? And I'm like, I'm always a little bit surprised that we have as much trouble as we do attracting this younger generation to come in.
Well, Russ, that's one of the biggest things, is that we just don't tell our story well.
Yes.
We just don't tell our story well. And so, when we pulled out, especially in California, a lot of the career and technical education components, the things that are wood shop or even, auto, like letting you use your hands and understanding that you can be creative and powerful with your hands instead of just, I'll say, knowledge from a book. Like, we've taken that away from the experiential part of education, and we need to put that back in. We don't go out and tell our story enough. We've been at AGC of California really investing in this. How do we go tell our story to that next generation differently? But the challenge really comes around, I'll say, the public stereotypes around our industry. For a very long time, and even still today, for the most part, right? You look at how we, I'll say, visualize or project construction. And it's usually this idea of kind of the person who's coming to your home to do a remodel in the bathroom or the kitchen, and it feels like their timelines are never on, or they're lazy, or they're taking on too many projects and not prioritizing. So our experience is not always the one that we glorify for the real work that is actually happening out there, right? There are always, I'll say, some bad contractors or bad folks in an industry. The vast majority of what we do, though, is so impactful and yet never really seen. This building, every building, right? Like 100% of the public loves our outcome, right? Like our final product. But very few actually like the process of how we get there. They really don't actually understand how it is, because their interaction with it is usually only in the most negative spaces. Really loud and noisy all of a sudden, and it's disturbing my ability to either be at home or to be at work right now. You're shutting down a lane on the freeway right now and like creating gnarly traffic for me. You're impacting my day. You're becoming a nuisance to me. And so when construction is viewed that way, as that nuisance, that piece that's unfortunately right now creating a negative space around me, even though I still want that final product, it's that disconnect that we have with the public right now. If everyone really valued construction, when there are cone zones and we're saying you've got to slow down to 55, just 55, we'd all do it. But we don't. And instead, we put the lives of those people on the other side of those cones in danger every single day with no hesitation. Like, that is a fundamental problem in our society, is that we don't value those workers. We don't value those people who are out there putting themselves in danger every single day to make our lives better, right? So until we really shift that perception that we as a public have, why would you ever let your kid who comes home saying, I'm going to go be one of those people? You're going to say, hell no, you're not. You're going to college or you're going somewhere else, but you're not going there. Because again, our perceptions are, it's not of value. Again, if it were, we'd all adhere to those things. We'd all do the right thing and value the lives on the other side of those cones.
Wow. That's fantastic. Thank you. If you have something to add, please do. But if it's okay, I want to shift gears. Many of our largest and most forward-thinking contractors are folks that you know really well and have been our customers for a while. We joke that, like, Tykert puts in a Tenna request pretty much every day, right? So you kind of have this unique seat of this drumbeat from your role of the big construction companies that are, I'm going to say, ahead of the pack. Where do you think they're excited to go over the next year or two? How do you think the conversations are going to evolve of how tech and construction are going to plug in together and partner more for the long term? What are some of the big concepts you think that are going to be really big for everybody? What are we going to start talking about now that's going to be a little more commonplace at 3 years from now at the next Con Expo?
Yeah, sure. I definitely think the utilization one is huge because it impacts so many things. there are still a number of people who have just been doing it for so long that they think that's the way you're supposed to do it. So I think the information that they're now getting from the technology is opening their eyes to other things they could be doing, whether that is how they're spending their CapEx differently in terms of how they're looking at their equipment, right? Or changes they're making in terms of how early on they're getting rid of things. So I think certainly with the future release of our asset financials, it's going to be huge, because I think that in the past, people have just sort of rolled with things and done maintenance services reactively, not proactively. And so with technology, it's freeing up the time of their department, their fleet department, their operations department, to start to look at other things and how can they improve in all other ways within the company. So I think the asset financials part is really going to be eye-opening to a lot of people who didn't otherwise have any of the information around, is this machine almost at the end of its life? And I also think that the safety component is really big. So I think people moving to digital inspections, doing measuring different things in the field. I think one of the clients that I have in California who's doing it best, they have like a global scorecard. So it's not just about your driving, it's about your safety on the job site and throughout the entire year. And then, you know, they incentivize those folks with a large prize. And so it becomes this great competition throughout the company to be as safe as possible. And that is something, you know, that we're all struggling with, to Peter's point, right? You know, when people think of our industry, they don't necessarily want to throw their kids in there. But when you start to have these tools in place to take preventative measures around, let's make sure we are being as safe as possible, I think it's really helpful. Technology can help with that. You're getting rid of the paper, and then people are not finding out about, you know, if something's broken 5 days later when they finally get the paperwork turned in. Now they're getting intel about it that moment and being able to make corrections so people can go back to work and keep making the company money.
That's great points. Yeah, there's almost a point. Some of the folks you work with have done the first hard steps of putting technology in place to autonomously gather data, if you will. And so you're taking opinion out of it. Now that you have this data at scale and over time, now what's next? Like, there's millions of dollars we found on the table, and we can action on those. And it's not because somebody called and gave you their opinion about what they're doing. They can now, and many of your customers, I think, are at the forefront of, like, they're going to pick up those millions of dollars that were left there just because they didn't know.
Yeah, I see that most people are coming to us with, all right, well, first we just want to know where our stuff is. We're spending too much time looking for it. And then year one goes by and they're like, wait a minute, now we are saying that the field isn't reporting accurately. So now we want to true that up. And then they're saying, well, now we can also, now that we have this information, now we can stop renting as much, right? And so these goals, it is definitely a moving goalpost, because they're getting to those and able to move on to the next thing. And it's exposing them to things they weren't aware of.
Every great step leads to another great step.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. With safety, I know that AGC of California is kind of ahead on safety. What, you know, Elizabeth touched on safety. Didn't mean to turn into any kind of Tenna commercial here, but I'm like, overall, what are some of the things you're excited about with safety? It could even be mental health, all the things. I know you guys are kind of investing more there than most of what I see across the country. So I'd love your thoughts.
I mean,
there.
so safety is a priority, right? It 100%, as Elizabeth said, it impacts our recruitment efforts as well. Safe job sites, if you don't have them, right? If we're not viewed as a safe industry, it becomes very, very challenging. So we're seeing a lot of new ways to think about safety. And I think data is helping us. Like, real data is actually giving us, I think in the past we had reports. We're now actually, with data, with AI, with capabilities of technology, we're getting insights. And that's different. We can get a lot of report outs. And look, I like an Excel spreadsheet like anyone else does, but that doesn't necessarily give me the insights I need. I need to be able to take all that data and actually make better decisions with it. And that's where insights can help us. And so being able to take data and turn it into knowledge is going to be really important. And I think that's going to help us on safety, make better decisions, smaller, like at the most granular level, we can learn things. And this is where I think Tenna has actually been a lead on. It's just being able to understand, like, someone tired, are they falling asleep, like, while operating a heavy machinery or a vehicle out there? And what does that mean? And how do we, like, help them even in those moments? But that goes to, why are they tired? Like, why are they coming to the job site in a position where they aren't either rested, or their body is physically tired, or emotionally or mentally tired? Like, these things impact then safety. And so we have to be talking about the whole ecosystem of safety as well, not just the physical part of it, but even the mental or emotional side of it, the psychological side of it, because it is a tough industry. You're asking them to go out in an area where there is real danger. And so that is an emotional component that wears on them too. So mental health has to be part of this conversation. Sadly, like the statistics in construction are really bad, like at crisis levels. And so when we look at more than double the suicide rates are in construction than the average out there, we have to ask what's driving that. And then you look at overdose situations across the country, almost 1 in 4, it's 24%. 24% of all overdoses that happen on any job, it's going to be a construction worker right now. That's too high. So we have to ask the question, why are we having a problem with opioids and addiction? And then you look at what those cause into the suicide dynamic. Like all of these things are related, and it comes down to an industry where we have to talk about culture. We have to leverage tools that are going to help us give, again, insights in how to talk about safety differently, because we can be very physically safe. But if I've got someone who is emotionally unsafe still, that's going to impact everyone else on the job site too. Because of that one person who may be in charge of a piece of equipment or maybe, falling asleep in a vehicle, that puts everyone else in danger too. So we have to be looking at this from a holistic viewpoint on the person and their whole safety now.
If you have something to add, please do. You guys are both what I would call excellent agents of change in a very natural and easy way. So I'd love your advice, even specific to your role, because when I think about AGC of California, across the country, I'll see people like, I don't have time to go to a conference. I'm too busy running my company. Or I don't have time to take this meeting. I'm too busy running my company. Like, I'm too busy. And you've helped people understand that 10 cents of investment gets the dollar payout on the end. And like, no, sometimes pausing, sometimes you got to slow down to speed up a little bit, right? And you've been great at getting that change, not just from you, but an entire team. You've got the whole ecosystem understanding that when we learn from each other, what we get on the back end is worth the investment on the front end. And you've done the same. Like, I guess I'd say, in terms of like even specific to Tenna, like, yeah, you might have a bunch of young people that are so excited about bringing this new thing in, but there's always some guy that looks like me, meaning old, that's like, I'm going to quit if you do this. This is how I've done it for 10 years. I'm going to rip this out of the truck and throw it out the window kind of a thing. So this is, I think you guys are ahead of the game here. And I guess advice you would give to the folks that are like, they know there's an opportunity to get better, but it's so hard to like take that drumbeat pause to go, let's look at this and figure out how we can get better together. Like, what advice do you have on being that agent of change? How to get people excited to invest a little bit of time to look at this change?
So first, what we had to do is go out to them and listen about the challenges, their struggles, hear where they're at. And what we've learned is that if you again, meet them where they are, then you can actually communicate with them in a way that they're going to hear it. Too often we believe that if we just say it enough, somehow it's going to like sink into them and they're just going to know it. The reality is that our vernacular or our common culture is not common. And so that has been the biggest shift that we've had to learn is how do we talk to our members? How do we talk to an industry that doesn't always, I'll say, speak the way that all facets, right? So when we think about that ecosystem, if you bring tech people in, they don't always talk construction. They don't always talk the way an owner is faced with, as you were saying, I'm too busy or I don't have enough time. So what we've learned is that we have to use language that actually resonates so they hear it. And that means sometimes like breaking my own habits on words that I would or wouldn't use or shouldn't use in those cases. So, when we started talking even about mental health and everything else, we had to start with a business case first, not just the safety case. Yes, that matters, but feelings, we don't need to talk about those things, right? Because we've never talked about those things. We work hard, we play hard, right? And it's like, okay, so if I can't break that sentiment right away, what's a different way to talk to them? And you start looking at the business case around it. You start looking about productivity and efficiencies, and all of a sudden, someone's willing to talk to you differently about that. So what we've learned is that you have to be nimble in being able to approach the industry so that they can actually hear what you're really saying. And it really comes down to then finding what is that vernacular, that common language that's going to work for each of these different people and different subsets of the industry so that they can really start getting the messaging. And that is not an easy thing to do. It really takes time to start kind of going, what is their real barrier and what's the word problem? I mean, and it's as simple as, again, we all weaponize words now and we don't even realize it. But if I come in, and I've done this before and I've had to learn from it hard, and say, you just got to be more progressive. They immediately assume what does progressive mean, and it becomes
it's charged.
It's charged, right? And it's innocuous in a lot of ways, but it's not. And that's the part where, again, we don't take time or that pause to really understand, okay, what's the language they will hear versus what's the language that is not resonating with them. And that's the piece that has been, for us, like how we message then is very different. And so we start in different ways with like business cases to open doors to then say, doing what you've always done it's not working, right? And so let's talk about what that means. But that takes a lot of time to really understand then how to help them get to the place where like they can hear the message.
No, that completely makes sense.
I'd say by and large, I obviously agree with Peter. Listening is a huge component of it. I'd also say for the folks that look like you, they're often.
I guess I said it first.
You said it
so it's
first.
okay.
I got the pass. Oftentimes the change that they're afraid of is more of the failure, right? And so I think what I've seen work is first, the company communicating why they're making the change, right? It's generally about saving time, becoming more efficient, trying to, get with the times in a way, to Peter's point, draw in younger talents. But then also the training component of it. I have one particular client in Southern California that had told me a couple of years ago, we really want Tenna. We really like this concept, but we're going to have to wait until our shop guy retires, because right now he does everything on paper and he does everything in filing cabinets. And to my surprise and to their surprise, they decided that they wanted to share the information with their team. And we went in and we did a pilot and we showed them. And these guys, the filing cabinet guys, actually love it. They love it. They came on board. They're really excited about it. They're taking everything from paper and going digital. But it was about training. We had to sit down and explain to them and show them how you can now do your reports, how you no longer need to carry that binder full of paper with you for every single machine when you're driving to Northern California for several hours at a time, because you can now do it from your app or your iPad. So, the communication is huge. When I've seen companies just invest in Tenna, but not involve other teammates or just sort of shove it down their throat and say, this is what we're doing now, there is always that little pushback. But when the training comes into play and we can sit down and show them how we're actually making their job easier, they tend to embrace it pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. You did something pretty cool fairly early at Tenna. Maybe it wasn't early. Maybe it was halfway in, or you and I joined within a few weeks of each other. But I think you called it Day in the Life, which was an excellent way to focus around change management. You went in and said, okay, I'm not just going to understand the company and where the company is here and what the company goals are, but you're like, okay, the finance department, the operations department, the folks in equipment, you took the time to go, what are you doing today? What are the big problems? So what's really your bottleneck? What's hurting? And not just go, what's this going to do for the company, but what's going to do for your individual role, and helped paint a picture of, here's where you're having problems today. Here's what we're going to do together next week. And then you even sketched out a plan of, it was almost like construction companies, they know good design leads to good build. And then they forget to apply that when they do technology. But you kind of force them into the, let's lay out the plan here. And here's what I'm going to do. And here's what you're going to do this week and week 2 and week 3 and week 4. And not just for the company, but for all the individual roles and how they're going to play together on that. And that, I found that, I'm like, wow, that really moved the ball forward. And everybody, you painted a picture of what life's, what was it like when I used a calculator, and here's what it's going to be like now that I have an iPhone. And you sketch that out for each role. Granted, that takes a little bit of time and it's effort on everybody's part, but it's one of those, put the dime in and you get $1 back out. I think you've proven that. I thought that was really cool.
I thought what was interesting about that is that even when we interviewed people in the same role at the same company, but different regions, they had different pain points.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so well, in that particular case, we were able to identify that the steps they were taking from request to dispatch was taking about 8 or 9 steps, and that's different phone calls, emails, all those other things. And that with technology, we could reduce it to 3 or 4 steps. And so it really was improving everybody's job, but we sort of had to listen to everybody's pain points because they were different, even though they were in the same roles. And that just comes down to, again, the training and trying to make sure that we can hear them well, to Peter's point, but then also, spit it out in such a way that it makes sense for them and does make it easier for them.
Yeah, and I'm imagining you have a similar hurdle, different construction companies doing different processes and different things, building different things, and then you have the different roles and you've done a really great job of, you've got all the execs coming and it's amazing what you've got there, but you have all the different flavors coming, the safety, all those folks kind of show up to really exchange ideas. Like, I don't know how you did that, actually.
Well, we actually took a pause as an organization, said, let's understand the personas within kind of our jobs. You're right that it's not always exactly one-to-one in the sense of just because they're in this role as a superintendent, it's the same across the board. And if you don't take time to kind of understand what is a superintendent, what is a foreman, and get to know those personas differently, then you're really only talking to one person and one persona out there. And that's where the disadvantage really comes into play, when you think that you have to communicate one way only, right? And so that's where really taking time to understand the different roles that are out there was really important, because then we found ways to invite different personas into the association, to plug them in differently, to engage them differently. And that's we call it anchoring the member, because the member is the company, and then the people within it are how we anchor it in, because the execs are there and they're really important. And so is the superintendent and the foreman and the project manager and the safety director. Like, all of these people have important roles to play, and they need support as well. So if we're going to support the member, we got to support the entirety of that member. So taking pause and understanding personas was really, really important for us to then really design our association to meet those different persona needs.
Fantastic. I know we're probably at about at time. I want to thank you for taking the time here today. If there's other stuff you guys want to talk about before Sean, I'd love to hear. But before we sign off, I do want to say thank you for both of you. In my life, serving an industry like this takes caring, and I will tell you that many what we call showing up and giving a damn. And I go through my life and meet a lot of people that I'm like, I have this sense of, like, you need to care a little bit more. You will enjoy your day more if you just care more and look to help a few more people. You're two of the people I look and I think maybe you should care a little less. And that's a special place to be. So thank you for what you do. I know you guys both care so deeply about the industry you serve, and it shows every day. Usually when I talk to either of you, I feel like I need to take a nap afterwards, in fact, but thank you for taking the time here. Was there anything else you guys were excited about? Anything as we look towards the future, anything you're particularly excited about that maybe we didn't talk about today?
Well, I mean, I'll just say this. There is a small little event that's happening in 2 years in Southern California, the Olympics. And so we are excited about being able to host and bring the world to California again. And it's driving a lot in our economy, including the construction part of it. But we are excited to see what that does, and it's interesting to see who's the sponsor of that, right? Like, Autodesk is the presenting sponsor. So to see a construction technology company actually playing at a global event at that level, it's exciting to me to see that we get to highlight, I'll say, a part of construction in a very, very big way in 2 years at the 2028 LA Olympics. So
that is exciting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, not that I'm, we love every company out there, but it to me, those are the things that are exciting to see, is that our industry is leveling up and stepping in to spaces that we usually left to, I'll say, other industries. So it's exciting to see us coming into play and owning that and saying, we're an important industry too, and you should pay attention to us.
We're getting a voice. Yeah. I love that. That's great. Anything you want to say before we?
No, I mean, I'm excited about, the continued growth Tenna will have. We have a lot of exciting things coming out this year. And of course, another year of our user conference, which is really exciting. We've had a lot of success with our contractors coming together to be able to collaborate. I think that, us serving the construction industry allows all of our clients to come together and share best practices, and to see them be able to collaborate with one another sort of without us needing to be in the room is really exciting, that we can be good partners to them.
Not quite as a big a deal as the Olympics, but it's a pretty big deal to us.
It's our Olympics.
It's our Olympics.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thanks, you guys. Thanks
Yeah.
very
Thank
much
you
for
for
taking the
having
time.
me.
I know you
Thank
guys
you.
are busy. All right.
It's always fun.
Yeah. Awesome.